The truth may be absolute, but our experience is not. Practices that are created with the intent to move closer to the truth and consciousness may or may not work to accomplish that end. As we scrape away at our relative experience by successfully having breakthrough after breakthrough, along with sudden and gradual understandings that increase our consciousness, we move closer to grasping the truth, but always seem to fall short of a complete and absolute enlightenment. Perhaps the sticking point is that the relative is not and never will be absolute. So there is nothing that can be done or experienced that can reach or grasp the absolute within a relative experience and mind. The leap that may be needed to bridge this unbridgeable gap is to grasp the absolute in the relative. Instead of endlessly creeping to an infinitely distant goal, we must grasp that the relative is the absolute and be conscious of how this is so. Beyond this leap in consciousness, no practice will ever reach its end if the goal is absolute enlightenment. Now I'm speaking mostly to these two here, so this is not going to mean much to you guys. You can become conscious of the absolute inside or outside of any practice. The practice itself cannot produce that result. Only you can. The practice itself cannot produce that result. Only you can. A good practice may help you focus your attention and intent, but don't confuse method for results. No method is absolute. It is an invention that may or may not be useful, but any method is only a method. No practice by itself can produce the result of direct consciousness and shouldn't be held as if it can. It may greatly assist you in doing that, but you have to do it. The method can't. With a good practice, we whittle away at our experience, eliminating beliefs and assumptions, programming and attachments, and all that is unreal and unnecessary. This is appropriate. By turning our attention and efforts to uncover all of our unconscious assumptions and working to become conscious of every facet and corner of our experience and reality, both our practice and the amalgam of our identity are reduced. Sharpening a knife on a whetstone, both stone and knife are diminished. Just so, in an effective practice, our self-identity and existential assumptions also become diminished, giving us the sharp edge of conscious clarity that can cut through ignorance and sever consciousness's attachment to mind and perceptive experience. Huh? Nice turn of phrase, huh? Yeah, but don't bring a knife to a gunfight. This direction begins to empower the possibility of making a leap in consciousness where we merge the relative and absolute into the same thing. Yet such a leap in understanding is rare. Even after having a few enlightenment experiences. One thing to consider in all this, difficult as it is that perception is not the thing being perceived. Whatever we are aware of in our objective and subjective experience, yet as Buddha said, what you see as reality is like a cataract on the eye of my true sight. His true sight, we postulate, is a direct consciousness of reality and not the indirect relative phenomena that is perception, concept, and experience on every level. Our job is to have this same true sight. Inconceivable and paradoxical as it is, there is a way to see reality as both relative and absolute. When this is the case, any practice would also be seen in the same light. It is understood that no practice itself can produce absolute consciousness, and yet inherent in the practice itself is a consciousness. that the nature of even this relative practice is absolute. It is the truth without ever being true. It might be sort of like being in a dream and contemplating being awake, knowing that this can never succeed, but the attempt provides a link to the possibility of actually being awake while you're in the dream. So at this point, a practice would be more of an abstract expression manifesting something that can't be manifest. Somewhat like language represents a distinction. Language represents a distinction with a form, sound, a shape, etc., that itself is not at all that distinction, but at the same time brings the presence of the distinction to the fore. Yes, sir?
He's saying that as a metaphor for the previous, like having a practice where the relative and absolute merge. The practice might, as it bring the distinction to the fore, even though it's not of the distinction, but it is
right
at the same time.
Like what religions are trying to do, but failing miserably, you see, is representing whatever, the truth, representing God, representing, something with symbols. And so when they bring the symbols out, that is supposed to be the blood of Christ, the body of Christ, that is supposed to be the, I don't know what the cross is all about, except the death of Christ. Resurrection, no, that's just his death. He wasn't on a cross when he was born again, or resurrected, right?
Comes back. Fuck.
Yeah. Hey, can somebody get this cross off me? Damn it. We have a carpenter? Oh, I'm a carpenter. Oh, screw. Somebody, hey, give me a saw. Something. I don't know. He's got to get it in his mouth, right? Serves me. Can you see Jesus with the saw? All right. But anyway, do you see what I'm saying? See, so like the altar at the old school, it was resisted. Yeah, I understand, but you got to grasp that it means nothing, and it means nothing. See, it's not the point. See. Anyway, you see what I'm saying? See the attempts, but the attempts always degrade into just meaningless ritual, even if they're well-meaning in the beginning. See, because it's kind of like
working uphill against a massive force or something.
Yeah, or a little like I could say I don't know, like Huan Sheng and martial skill are the principles, right? But where do you find the principles? You find it in action and then store it in techniques. Are the techniques necessary? No, the techniques are ways to learn about certain mechanical things, right? And to store, hopefully, some principle in there. But the techniques are really irrelevant. Yet, you're probably not going to get there without the techniques, because you're not going to learn the mechanics, you're not going to do like that kind of thing. Or like the body being. Are you going to practice body being without doing a set? No, probably not. See? I've only met one person that practiced body being to any real extent without a set. And you're looking at him, you see? And nobody else does. Nobody else seems to be able to. See? So you give them a set. Say, okay, now do this in the set. Practice this, manifest this, bring it to the fore in the set. See? And then they go, okay, I got to do that while I'm doing it. Oh, I see. See, so it becomes like a practice of doing body being, but the practice itself is not really the set. See? It's what you do when you do the set, or what it brings to the fore when you do the set. If it's just the set, then it's a meaningless ritual which has no function whatsoever. It has really no use, except maybe get a little exercise and learn the choreography, if you think that's useful.
So that's degradation.
Yeah, sure, of course. And 99% of all Tai Chi is that way.
Yeah.
Sure. 99% of all martial arts are that way. Yeah. And 100% of all religions. So where was I? I got what? So I told you. You throw water on you, you get wet. Yeah.
You want me to grab a towel for that?
No, no, that's fine. Are you fine? Yes, all right.
There's some on the cushion.
There is. At least it's water, it's not sweat. See? So it's washing. Consider it a washing. See, so it shouldn't stain. It shouldn't stain. If it does, then I can wash it. So let's see. Distinction saying brings to the fore, right? In this case, the absolute is not the distinction. Even the distinction we make when we think or speak of it. So it can't manifest in any way. Conversely, all of existence is its manifestation, so to speak. Our job is to be conscious of this directly. See? So whenever you have a thought about what you are, you see, or even who you are, the thought isn't it. See, the image you create isn't it. Even the memory, the history isn't it. See, it's it, and you can be conscious of that right now. See? See? Your mind is probably not trained up enough to be conscious of it right now. So it seems like, okay, I have to kind of remember something or try to reproduce a state or some such, you see? And that won't be it. See? You'd have to give that up and just be conscious of what is now. See, and know that every representation you make, which you're trying to bring it to the fore or remember it in your mind, whatever, you see, won't be it. This is missed by almost everybody who has enlightenment experiences, even in the enlightenment intensives. They miss this. Right?
Whenever you say that, I keep considering that maybe I am missing it, even though I don't. It doesn't seem that way to me. So all I'm saying is I think I've got what you're saying, but maybe I don't. Since you say almost everybody misses it, perhaps I've fallen into the trap, even though I don't think so. I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you. Put that on hold for the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold that. I'm going to go see a man about a horse. Then I will be back. Yeah, I say all this stuff, right? And just kind of fills your head with more nonsense. So I'm not speaking to you, I'm speaking to them. I'm filling their heads with more nonsense. Actually, what I'm doing is not really filling their head with more nonsense. I'm convincing them there's so much more to get. But as they'll tell you, enlightenment doesn't get you anything. Except the truth. It doesn't really change anything. And probably wouldn't give it up for anything. See?
It's true.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So what you just talked about when you talked about your version of the Heart Sutra.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I make it mean is something like there is consciousness and existence, and it is as if they're wed throughout each other.
They're what?
Throughout each other, as if merged. And then my job is to apply consciousness or see that this is the case.
Yeah. See, now, none of that makes any difference, and none of it is true. Okay? So don't worry about it, right? That's what I was telling you. Just grasp what's true. You don't have to create an image of consciousness and existence. Yeah? Don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. Therefore, this practice would just be representing the absolute within indirect perceptive experience, pointing attention toward direct consciousness. There is, however, a great danger that such a thing either begins as a belief, which is worthless and supports unconsciousness, or slips into ritual, or it slips into a ritual of believing, something like a religion.
I'm missing where we're at. What's the?
Oh, it's talking about this like language representing, say through something that isn't it, something that brings to the fore it. Say, so when I say anything out of my mouth, it brings to the fore a world that you're now can create along with me, that without this wouldn't be created here. And yet none of these sounds is the world you're creating, see, or that we're sharing. See? Table
Where?
isn't, the sound table isn't that. It's a table, table. See, but it brings that to the fore. Ah, table, yes, where? Kind of thing. Except much more tricky than that. But I'm just trying to, bounce it that direction. Yeah? That's what we're talking about. So I'd say, okay, this present then, this practice, if this is kind of like a practice, see, that's a big danger, what I just talked to before I left. This should be guarded against. The intent should always be to become completely conscious of what is absolutely true. If you already are, then there's no need of a practice. And you should take care that any form of expression or appreciation or communication not become mindless rituals. But if this is a bridge too far, now I'm talking to you. If this is a bridge too far, what do we do in the meantime? If we can't square the absolute with the relative, where should we put our attention and efforts? There's no other place to put attention than on the life you are living. The only added ingredient that transforms your life into a practice is, what is it? No matter what you experience as you, life, others, relationship, or anything else, what is it? What is its nature? How did it come to pass? Why does it exist? Once you honestly and openly investigate reality and your experience of it, you are contemplating without changing anything. You can sit and contemplate as a separate event, focusing on a subject, attempting to become conscious of its essence or nature. You could also investigate anything as you experience it, without any particular setting, posture, technique, or method. Simply want to discover what is ultimately true, even of the mundane and the normal. This is the only practice you really need. Seek to know everything. Eventually you will. Then all will reveal itself, and the relative and absolute will become one. You'll live out the rest of your life as if in a dream and fade into absolute nothing where you already are. Or something like that.
Is that actually the last sentence?
Yes.